We are here to bring a new type of news show.
New insights, new styles, and new topics every day.
We are News Generation.
Bring news just for you. It's Wednesday, February 26th here in Seoul. I'm Song Yujin, and welcome to News Generation. Joining us this Wednesday is Park Ki-yoon.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us, and Grace Park.
Good morning.
Good morning. Happy Wednesday. Now, both are here to speak on behalf of those in their 20s and 30s. So we're going to begin with our keyword news. Our keyword news for this Wednesday is K-pop. New data from global music streaming platform Spotify shows that BTS Jimin's Who and Blackpink Rosé and Bruno Mars's APT were the two most popular K-pop songs internationally in the second half of last year. And this was based on Spotify's global impact list, which was announced on Tuesday. Now, the list features 30 Korean tracks that racked up the highest number of streams worldwide in 2024. Who topped the rankings, followed by APT, Blackpink Jennie's Mantra, and Stray Kids' Chick Chick Boom. So, did you have these songs on your playlist last year, and what do you think has led to their massive global appeal?
Yeah, so I checked my playlist today and APT is on it.
Oh.
I've also listened to Jennie's Mantra and some of her new songs, and I have to admit they're really catchy. They're actually really perfect for the gym. And I think the reason that K-pop artists are garnering so much attention is that not only is the actual audio good, but the visuals are really, really entertaining in a uniquely Korean way. K-pop definitely offers a distinct sound and look, which can't really be replicated elsewhere, and I'm glad that people around the world are starting to take notice.
Right, so it's not only the catchy tunes, but also the flashy performances that
Right.
K-pop artists are providing to the international audience. Now, what about you, Ki-yoon?
You know, we've talked about Apart many times.
Many
on
times
this show
from
before.
since last year.
Yes, and on my way to work, I actually listened to Jimin's song and Chick Chick Boom as well. And they were, of course, just like what Grace said, very catchy. And just the names of these artists are already symbolic in the K-pop scene and also in the global music industry. And it's great to see members come out as solo artists and show how much talent they actually possess individually, because they may have somewhat been overshadowed performing as a group, because there's only so much time they can actually show that real talent. And another aspect that makes these artists shine on the global stage is that they sing the whole song in English, and they sound like native English speakers.
Right.
Like us, actually better than us, better than myself, some of them. And it just illustrates how much effort and practice they actually put in to release these kind of songs. And I think everyone around the world really appreciates the effort they've put in, and I think their hard work is finally paying off.
Absolutely.
And also G-Dragon.
Oh,
released
right.
his,
He is making a
solo album
comeback soon,
yesterday.
right?
Yeah, so look out for that, everyone.
A lot to look forward to in the world of K-pop this year as well. And that was our keyword news for this Wednesday. So we're now going to move on to our main discussion of the day. Wednesday is when we explore the latest lifestyle trends among young people. Take a look at the screen to find out more. We all have a budget to manage, unless, of course, you're a billionaire. Let's say you have a long wish list of things you want to buy, but your bank account balance isn't quite on board with your plans. What would you do in that situation? Would you hold off on the purchase, or would you turn to credit cards or loans to get what you want? It turns out that more and more young people are choosing the latter. Right, so we're bringing this topic to our show today because new data shows that debt among millennials and Gen Z is piling up at an alarming rate. In other words, many young people are now swimming in deeper debt. So, Ki-yoon, could you start off with the latest details?
Sure. According to reports from the Bank of Korea, household loans from those under 30 in the second quarter of 2024 amounted to approximately 500 trillion won, which is roughly $348 billion. So let's take a look at the screen to better understand the increasing debt among those under 30. Back in 2019, household loans were around $280 billion, but like I mentioned before, in 2024, it increased by almost 25% to approximately $350 billion. Now, this age group recorded the second highest rate of increase after those in their 60s at 29.5%. Furthermore, compared to the year 2020, applicants in their 20s who applied for a personal workout program increased by around 25% with over 13,000 applicants recorded. Now, this system is where the government provides debt repayment support for individuals with long-term overdue payments on credit card bills, loans, or other debts. And finally, another noticeable rapid increase is in the revolving credit system among those under 30. Now, it allows credit card users to pay only a minimum amount of their total bill while carrying forward the remaining balance to the next month. And this provides users with temporary financial relief, enabling them to spend more than the actual cash they currently have on hand. However, it incurs high interest, often close to the legal maximum of 20%, making it very similar to a loan. So this can easily lead to a cycle of accumulating debt, which statistics have already shown.
Right, so I think that there are two main points here. We're seeing more young people holding a larger share of debt here in Korea, and we're also seeing a rise in young users of personal credit services like credit cards or the buy now, pay later services or revolving credit that Kyu mentioned. But it seems that this is not just a problem that only young people in Korea facing, Grace. So what are some other international examples?
Yeah, we're seeing this trend not only among Gen Z and millennials here in Korea, but in the United States as well. A growing number of young Americans are also making use of the buy now, pay later or BNPL services that are available to them, as the ability to spread out payments are looking attractive in a time when inflation and credit card debt are at all-time highs. According to Bloomberg last year, credit card balances of the MZ generation are up more than 50% since March 2022, and many Gen Zers in the US are unable to pay off their debt, leading to their credit ratings being assessed as the lowest out of all generations.
This shows that a snowballing debt among young people is indeed a global headache. So I want to ask you guys now, what do you think is driving more young people to take on multiple loans with some struggling to pay them back?
Well, unlike our older generation, the MZ generation freely utilizes financial services such as installment plans and revolving credit, which often leads to increased unnecessary spending. The younger generation tends to spend more on non-essential items such as clothing and mobile games, and has a stronger tendency toward impulse purchases. They frequently use installment payments or buy now, pay later services to easily acquire desired products without immediate financial burden. In fact, when asked whether they had spent more than $100 on non-essential items, over 70% of MZ respondents said yes, while only 40% of baby boomers reported the same. This suggests a significant generational difference in financial habits and spending behavior. And actually, a close friend of mine, he plays a lot of mobile games on his phone, and he told me he recently bought this cool item, which was worth more than $100.
Really?
And I said, how does that change your life? In reality, he said, nothing. But in this gaming world, he makes him like so much bigger and stronger, where he can kill other people, other users, other players. And I thought, wow, so people around my age, still they're spending a lot of money online on these non-essential items. Maybe
it's because they have kind of like a different idea or concept of money when compared to their older counterparts. Many are more showing to splurge money rather than saving money, although we're not generalizing all millennials and Gen Zs, which could be one of the factors. Anything you'd like to add more, Grace?
Yeah, we saw a sharp rise in prices as governments around the world started pumping out cash after the COVID-19 pandemic.
Right.
And rising inflation led to the falling value of cash, which then resulted in people thinking that holding on to physical money was a dumb move. And because of stories that we'd hear about how people made millions investing in stocks and crypto, lots of people started borrowing money and going into debt to hopefully achieve their get-rich-quick aspirations. And also, even though there's been an overall shift in society to YONO, or you only need one culture, the once widespread YOLO, which of course stands for you only live once concept, is still popular with millennials and Gen Z.
Right.
And they greatly value instant gratification and living in the moment. And like Hyun mentioned, aside from purchasing physical products, young people don't spare their money on experiences that they want to have or think are important. As a result, paying for them using installments or revolving credit has become the norm for young consumers, which is the cause of debt accumulation. What makes this situation really bad, though, is that Gen Z and millennials are facing more financial uncertainties due to high inflation, unemployment, and it's becoming more and more difficult to pay off debt.
Right, definitely. Then so far we focused on the bigger picture, but now I want to ask you guys kind of like a personal question. Have you ever used these BNPL services, for example, credit card installment payments or revolving debt? How about those around you?
I'm not sure if it's a fortunate thing or an unfortunate thing, but I haven't. I don't actually have a credit card.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't plan to have one in the future. But I think one reason is I don't like the feeling of having to pay back money in a limited amount of time, in a set amount of time. And I feel that I'm not really good with numbers, so having to constantly calculate how much I owe and how much I have to earn and pay back, it just gives me too much headache. And I think, I know there are multiple benefits to having a credit card, and I felt it this time when I had to get my car fixed. I needed a large amount of money, which I didn't have right now. And I thought, oh, this is when I really need a credit card to make installment payments with no interest. Because in Korea, there's a lot of good services where you can pay for in the space of 3 months, up to 6 months max with no interest. So I was thinking, oh, maybe it's time for me to get a credit card, but only if you can manage it. I mean, to set your limits is very important, but I just think for me right now, I don't like to buy things that I cannot afford at the moment. So for now, I like to stay on the safer end of spending.
So I think it's really important to always keep in mind whether the amount you need to pay off is smaller than the amount you earn, right?
Exactly.
What about you, Grace?
Yeah, I'm not too familiar with revolving credit, but I have paid off my credit card bills in installments. And here in Korea, it's especially easy to take advantage of that service because a lot of the time when you pay for something, they'll ask if you want to pay it in full, or they call it 일시불 in Korean, or in installments or 할부. And actually, when I first came to Korea, I was so confused every time I would pay because they would ask me, do you want to pay in full or do you want to pay in installments? And that wasn't something that I was used to growing up in the US. And oftentimes they'll even let you know if there's like some kind of special event going on that will allow you to pay off these installments interest free. And these tactics make it very enticing for the consumer to buy something that you wouldn't necessarily consider getting if you had to pay the full price up front. And from my experience, I also noticed that they make it really convenient to also pay off these installments because, you know, with just one word, you're now just having automatic payments being taken out for the next 2, 3, 4, however many months.
And you can even set the date when that payment
Exactly. Yeah, so they just make it really easy for you to use these installments.
Right. So to get a better picture, we also asked our viewers how much of their monthly income they feel comfortable to spend on non-essentials, things other than food, rent, and utilities. So we conducted a survey through our Arirang YouTube channel with the question, how much of your income would you spend on non-essentials? Out of 4 options, 83% chose under 20%, 9% chose up to 50, 5% chose up to 100, and 3% chose more than my monthly income. If we look at some specific comments, Roddy Russell Jr. 93 says, the real question is how much of my salary can I spend on non-essentials after paying rent and the phone, gas, and light bills? It's rather close to 0%. Shinban says, if I could continue to work at my job, I'm willing to spend more than my salary on trips or other fun experiences. Our last comment for this Wednesday is by Benny D97. I'm willing to spend under 20% to buy that bag I want because I only live once. All right, so for an in-depth look at today's topic further, after the break, we'll be joined by an economics expert. We'll be right back.
NewsGen wants to hear from you. Go to YouTube and search our channel Arirang Click Community and leave a comment down below. Make a new type of news with us.
Joining us this Wednesday morning is Kim Hwa-gyun, who is the Rogers, Rainey, and Ann Bob Rainey Professor of Banking and Finance at Texas A&M University's Mays Business School. Welcome to the show, Professor Kim.
Thank you for the invitation.
Thank you for joining us. So, Professor, we first want to ask you, what do you think is the biggest factor leading more young people to go into debt these days?
And there could be multiple factors, but clearly, as panels mentioned, I think financial constraint is probably one of the most important factors. And especially younger people nowadays facing very high housing cost and the basic, the cost of the things like transportation, etc. So in anticipation of almost like impossible, the goal of purchasing good houses or something, they start purchasing probably more on the non-essential items or smaller items. I think that's probably one of the reasons. I mean, having said that, also we can talk about this consumption habits. So economists actually have studied what would be the good utility function or like happiness function to estimate and understand the demand function. And then one of the important things is the habit. So I actually will look at my past consumption and at least I want to consume as much or probably higher than that to make me feel better. And then also, I think you just try to just compare with others or your peer. And if my consumption level is lower than that, I think, I feel unhappy. So as you can see, the social media has transformed everything, including the way that we spend money and then pressure to keep up and also to have the latest gadgets to travel and things like that is much stronger, similar to what we just talked about, like this consumption habit function. And also because of the fintech, making the borrowing so easy, like this buy now, pay later type of options. It's so tempting for people actually just to click the button and then just get into this, the spirals of the debt cycle.
Professor Kim, from a macroeconomic perspective, what could be the potential risks of rising debt among young people?
So it's somewhat related to my previous answer. So I think, it's like in habits. So you start spending more and more in the younger days, then it's very difficult to reduce that. So to maintain that, either you have to make more money or you actually have to get debt. So that's kind of, the mechanism. And the debt growth itself is not a bad thing. So if you look at in good economic times in macro terms, then you can definitely see the debt is growing. It's because you need to spend more and you need to also invest more, and that's also correlate highly with the good economy by definition. But at the same time, if we anticipate the economy is going to go bad or it's already in bad times, then debt actually can go also increase because in that case you need to maintain the consumption level. Unlike other macro variables, consumption is very smooth and people really resist not reducing the level of consumption than other times. So I think that's basically the mechanism. Therefore, if the economy starts getting bad, then debt is going to go bad, and then that's going to reduce the further capacity for increase the investment and consumption, and that's going to be really bad in terms of prolonging and persistent economic downturns. And at the same time, if the household debt is increasing, clearly that's going to just increase the financial system instability. Therefore, the uncertainty is going to increase, especially in terms of we call this type of thing as debt overhang problem for firms, but also households exactly have the same issue. So because you have so much debt already and times are bad, therefore income is getting smaller, then clearly I think you basically have to get into these debt spirals basically.
Then Professor Kim, what are some practical steps that can help reduce the growing debt burden for young people?
So I think the financial education is probably one of the important things. I know nowadays at high school and also in middle school that we try to just teach the students about financial literacy and then what would be a good way to invest and also the save, as well as, of course, to consume in a reasonable way. But having said that, of course, if already economy is bad or income generation is not that easy, then of course you have to depend on some debt. So in that case, debt management, I think, is important skills to learn. So clearly, I think, according to some of the studies, usually less than about 25% of the monthly debt payment over the income is probably the most desired, probably the maximum. So I think getting less than that probably is a good thing. So clearly some sort of education and policy drive is important. And for those who have issues, I think it is important to elongate or increase the maturities of the debt. So rather than make these debtors or the loaners just to completely just default, I think it's important to increase the debt maturity so that they can just pay back in smaller amount. And at the same time, I think some sort of consumer-friendly refining option should be better equipped. I mean, I know that I think there are good installment payment plans and things like that in Korea, but I think once they lose some of their good credit scores and things like that, I think the interest and or other borrowing terms become really harsh, at least for the younger generations, at least for once or twice, so that moral hazard problem doesn't occur. Probably we should have some small amount of debt relief programs so that the young generations can just start up again.
All right, Professor Kim, thank you so much for sharing your expertise today. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Thank you. Right, so ending off, nobody wants to be trapped in a never-ending cycle of debt. It can quickly become overwhelming. And at the end of the day, financial health comes down to smart or healthy spending habits. So ending off, how do you think we can build these habits? For example, how to avoid or manage debt when they are unavoidable?
Well, I just want to share one video that I watched recently on smart consuming. The host said if you have a sudden impulse to purchase an item, put it in your shopping cart, wait 2 weeks, come back after 2 weeks. If you still have the same urge to buy that item, purchase it. But usually these impulses die down over time.
Right.
And if you do buy it without thinking too much about why you really need it, you don't really end up utilizing the item as much as it's worth in price. So just think on it for about 2 weeks if you really want to purchase an item.
Right, so managing impulse purchases. What do you suggest, Grace?
Of course, there's no one-size-fits-all solution to this problem, but yeah, my rule of thumb is just not to spend more than you make.
Right.
And be aware of your spending habits. Some good self-control methods could be setting a limit on your credit cards, or like Hyun mentioned, using debit cards instead of credit cards to keep better track of money that's actually leaving your bank account, and so on. I think being self-aware and realistic are key, and building healthy consumption habits are important, especially in times that we are in right now. So.
Right, definitely. So very great advice from our panelists as well. And that's all from us today, but NewsGen will be back tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. Korea time. Special thanks to Park Ki-yoon.
Always a pleasure.
Thank you. And Grace Park.
Thank you.
Thank you. And to our viewers, thank you everyone for staying with us, and we'll see you tomorrow morning. We are
News Generation.